Hello, boys and girls. It's time for geography. Pull out your page with geography number 3, right? We're talking about the motions of the earth. We dealt last week with a little bit of the motions inside of the whole aspect of the earth. Today, we're going to focus more on the motions of the earth. Now, there's two things the earth does. Number one, it rotates or revolves around the sun. It revolves around the sun. It means it orbits the sun. But then it also rotates. The earth moves, doesn't it? It moves in a circle while it's going around the sun. All right. So number one, I'm going to hang this up right here. What does the orbit of the earth cause? Remember we discussed it last week, last week. When the earth goes around the sun, what is the effect of that? Right? What's the effect? Let's write this at the very top. It causes there to be excuse me, seasons. It causes there to be seasons. So we have winter, summer, spring, fall. It's because of the rotation of the earth around the sun. Okay. Or the revolution of the earth around the sun. So let's put the sun here in the middle. Let's create an orbit, right? Let's put the earth here, let's put the earth here, the earth here, earth here. Isn't that kind of what your paper looks like? Okay, and we're going to talk about this a little bit more. Let's erase these lines here so that it looks like that. So here's the sun, and the earth rotates around the sun. It goes this way, okay? You see your arrows? They're pointing that way. You see how your arrows are pointing? All right? You don't actually need those because you have arrows. So it goes around the sun. Now, at the top, you can see right here, this circle, this is the North Pole. You see that circle on the very top? So you should be looking at your paper right here. So look at the very top circle. There's the North Pole. So we're looking down on the earth from the very top. Like if we were God looking down at our solar system, this is what it would look like, the earth revolving. So the earth is here, and then it moves all the way around this way. And if you're looking at it, notice that the North Pole is right here. You see how it's shaded? All this is darker, right? And notice how the North Pole is right smack dab on the shaded part. Notice over here that this side is shaded, but where's the North Pole? The North Pole is over here, even though all this is shaded. Look at this again. Again, the North Pole is right in the center, and all of this is shaded. And then over here, notice how all this is shaded, and the North Pole is way in here. So look how the sun shines. Here, the sun's shining to here. Here, it hits North Pole. Here, the North Pole is fully in the sun. Then here, it goes back again to where the sun is right, or the darkness and light is right on the North Pole, and then goes back to where the North Pole's in the dark. That's why in Alaska, they have like 2 months where it's only dark in Alaska. Like you wake up, the sun never comes up. And there's some days over on this period of time up in Alaska, during this period of time, or in Alaska, when there's so much sun that it's never dark. Can you imagine going to sleep and it's bright outside, just like if it was 2 o'clock in the afternoon? So in Alaska and places in the north like that, they have to have very heavy curtains so they can actually sleep and have it dark. Now, let's put this. So this is around the month of March. So right beside, let's erase this right here. And let's put right beside your sun, let's put March, the month of March. You can do it in print because this is a drawing, kind of a map, all right? The map of the rotation or the orbit or the revolution of the sun. And then down here, let's put June right underneath this one, because this is June. So it takes from March to June. It goes from this side of the sun to here in June, okay? And then we have September, right? And then over here we have December. And then it goes back to March. So it's January, February, March, April, May, June, July, August, September, October, November, December. January, February. So remember, it takes 1 year for the earth to go around the sun, the orbit. Now, what season is it between December and March? Is it cold or is it hot? Oh, it's winter. So on this line, let's write winter. Right? And then after winter comes what? So it's really, really cold, and then all of a sudden the cold starts to pass because look, we're not further away from we're closer to the sun now. See the North Pole here? There's more light into the northern hemisphere. And we'll talk about hemispheres in a minute. And so it turns into spring. The flowers start to spring up out of the ground, right? You start seeing flowers bloom, you start seeing greener grass. And then what comes after, then in June, what is it? It is summer. That's what we're in right now, when it gets hot. Look how much of the northern hemisphere where we are. We're in the northern hemisphere. Look how much of the northern hemisphere is covered by the sun. It's very, very hot during that time. Then we hit September and it starts getting closer. The leaves start to fall. It starts getting colder. And this is what we call summer, winter, and fall. Some people call it autumn. Let's call it fall. Okay? Call it fall. So here's where the leaves start to fall. That's why we call it fall. The leaves start to fall. It gets cold because most of the northern hemisphere, see, here is the northern hemisphere, the North Pole. It's mostly shaded from the sun, right? It's leaning away. But then it comes around, it's cold, cold, cold. It gets hotter, gets really, really hot, and then starts to get cold again. Gets colder, 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 colder. And it does that over and over and over and over again. Right? And the Bible discusses with us that the seasons change. Didn't God bring in all the seasons? He said, as long as the earth prevails, the seasons will come. Right? God is sustaining the earth by his providence. So this is how it works. I want you to notice, you see the North Pole is circled on every one of your papers. It's right along the shadow. Here it's in full view of the sun. It's in the shadow, and here it's all the way in the shadows. Because as you know, we'll get into this in a minute, the earth is tilted. It's not straight up and down. All right, let's turn our papers over to the back. So this is the orbit of the earth, okay, around the sun. That's the first motion. What's the second motion? Turn your papers over. It's the rotation. What is the rotation? That means how the earth is spinning. What does the rotation of the earth cause us to have? Look, here is a globe. See if I can hold it. Right? And the earth, it rotates. It spins. So while it's doing this, it's also going around the sun at the same time. What does this cause to happen? What happens when the earth spins? It gives us day and night. So at the very top, what does the rotation of the earth cause? It causes us to have days and nights. If the earth didn't rotate, it would always be day on one side of the earth and it would always be dark on the other. So I want you to notice that notice your paper. Look here. You have the sun, right? And notice how the sun is towards, or the earth is towards the sun. It's daylight on this side and it's dark on this side. While one side of the earth is facing the sun, it's bright, and the other side is dark. And as it turns, the other side gets the light and the other side becomes dark. Now, right here, you got a little line. I want you to pay attention because we're going to write something on this line. You have a line right there, and you have a line here. On this line, I want you to write winter. So write winter on that first line. And on the other line, you're going to write summer. Okay? Now notice, I want you to notice in your paper, during winter time, the earth is facing away from the sun. So that means less heat is coming. Remember how I was talking about to you when you have a fire, if you get closer to the fire, you get hotter. If you get further away from the fire, you get colder. That's what's happening here. Now notice during the summer, what's the earth doing? It's leaning towards the sun. Does that make sense? Because look down here. The earth is not straight up and down. It's leaning to the side. It's at an angle. Look at our globe again. Let me put this right here. If you look at the globe, is it like this? No, it's angled. Look, the axis from here goes straight this way. So the angle is that, well, let's get the angle right. The angle is like this. That's how the earth is spinning. And that helps it to have the sun where it hits in the correct spot to make it warmer or colder. So here's how the earth rotates around the sun, but at the same time, or goes around the sun, but at the same time, it's rotating like this in a circular pattern, but it's at an angle. Now notice how the earth is at an angle here, but it's at the same angle here. So the earth is not angled this way on this side and this way on that side. Because if it was, then we'd always have summer, never winter. But because it's angled at different ways, as it revolves around the earth, or the sun, like we saw here, certain parts of the earth get more sun at different times of the year. Okay? Now, what is the angle of the axis? The axis of the earth is like North Pole to South Pole. So on our papers, right here, on this paper right here, I want you to write North Pole right here. Here, I'll put it up here. I want you to write North Pole right here, and I want you to write South Pole right here. Here's a North Pole, write North Pole, South Pole. So we're going to write that on our paper. And you can do print again. North Pole. And at the bottom, you're going to write South Pole. Because remember, when we studied our meridian lines, the meridian lines run, the longitude run like this, through the center of the earth like this, all the way around. Okay? But the earth is not, notice how it's not straight up and down, right? If I were to get a paper and I were to hold this paper straight, this is where from the South Pole, look where you can see if I were to hold it straight, look where the line is supposed to run. But the earth is not like that. It's at an angle. You see that? So instead of it being straight up and down, it's at an angle. And that's what is able to give us our seasons in the winter and the summer while the earth revolves around the sun. So what angle is the earth's axis? Let's put it on here. We're going to be pretty accurate from the latest studies we got. It's 23.5 degrees. Now, degrees doesn't mean temperature. You know how you say it's 40 degrees outside, or it's 90 degrees outside, or it's 115 degrees outside in the middle of summer, right here in California, when the earth is like right about this point, right, where all of it is in the sun. It gets up to 115 in the desert. Whew. That's not the kind of degrees we're talking about. When we're talking about these kind of degrees, it's an angle. For example, when you're dealing with angles, and you'll get into this when you get into algebra, and especially geometry and trigonometry, this right here is called a 90-degree angle. So from here to here is 90 degrees. If I were to draw an angle like this right here would be a 40. So this is a 45-degree angle. Now the angle of the earth is even smaller than this, okay? It's at a 23.5, I think is what we said. Is that what we said, 23.5? Yeah, a 23.5 degree angle. But, so instead of it being straight up and down, it's curved a little bit. Does that make sense? So when we talk about angles, we're talking about degrees, not temperature. So get that page done, fill in all the information, and enjoy yourself. We'll see you next week for geography. Adios, amigos.